Welcome back to reality with Reality Hub. How are you, Rob, over there in that place?
Well, it's feeling kind of weird, not because of everything that's happening in the world, but because we're not in studio.
Yeah,
You're far away in beautiful Pyroa. I'm in Auckland, and this is the first time we've done a remote podcast recording
it is
between
indeed.
between the two of us.
Yeah,
We normally work together.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You sound like you're talking to me underneath sheets. You're wrapped up in a cocoon.
Yeah, I'm in I have a small studio apartment here, and I what's that saying now? Your home is now your safe zone.
Mm,
So this has been my safe zone for a while, and I just feel very chilled. I feel like with everything that's slowed down, my whole rhythm slowed down. And so I'm walking slower, I'm talking slower, I'm eating slower, doing
wow.
everything very slowly, which is not a bad thing.
No,
Very because there's no rush to do anything.
that's
There's
right.
nowhere to really go unless you're going food shopping or doing some exercise. But there's no rush. So the speed, it's almost like someone has turned the dial down, and everything's just in slow motion.
Wow. Can I just
So
check
that's
with your microphone if you could? You're holding it right up to your face, aren't you?
yeah, I am.
This would be unusual
Do
for
you
me
want
to
to
ask you this, but could you take it away from your face just a little bit,
Sure.
just a bit of
Yeah.
gap? How's that?
That's fine. Yeah, I don't know how that's translating.
No, you still
On your
sound
end,
like
but-
you're between sheets.
Okay.
Well,
I'm not.
our connection, we had some difficulty connecting today with the audio, but we've managed to get there. And you've slowed down, have you? You've slowed traveling between your lounge and your toilet.
Yeah, it's because this has never happened it's never happened in the city that I live in. So I live in pretty much the central city. So there's always a city noise of traffic, of just activity, and that's just all settled down.
Yeah.
And so your awareness is aware of that. It's just really quiet. So during the day, you can hear the birds, you can hear leaves rustling, and occasionally you'll hear a car. But yeah, it's like all the ambient extra city noise has just been, what do you call it? Erased, taken out, edited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
fascinating.
it's
I
fascinating.
feel the same at my end.
Mm.
I've where I'm living, got out of town, got away an hour and a half away, and from this location, the internet isn't quite as good, but it's fairly stable, and I'm able to work from home, and Bridget's been able to work from here as well. On the first day of work this week, we didn't really have the space in the house for her desk. I mean, I've got my desk set up, which is cheeky of me.
Yeah.
But then we need to find one for her as well. And
Yeah.
whilst we're figuring that out, because there's a bit of junk in the place that we're working through, we set her up in her own car. We turned her car into her office space.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was good.
You need to send a picture of that to me.
In the end, we canned it because it wasn't as comfortable as a normal seat would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do
I
you
would've
think
thought-
of the whole situation at the moment?
Listen, I've lost track of the days purposefully. It's almost like the days don't really mean anything anymore. That's one thing, because I'm not in that work mode as you are. So maybe you've still got to have that kind of structure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I go through sort of ebbs and flows where I can get really triggered with getting too into the media, and you want to find a nice balance between information that is valuable about what's actually going on for instance, what's open and what's not, what you can and can't do during this particular, what do they call it, lockdown, or all these new terms that are coming out, self-isolation.
Yeah.
But once you're a few days into that, you start getting into your own rhythm. And one thing that's really helped me is that I've instigated a routine. So each day I follow this routine because I feel like it's easy to sort of, if you don't have the routine, then you start looking for distractions. And today I've hardly been on social media and I've hardly been online. And it feels really good not doing that. So, yeah, I can get triggered by just all the information out there, and because you want to know what's going on and you want to get a clear understanding. I just want to know the truth, and it's like, how do you filter through all that to get to the truth? So I've purposely sort of stepped back and started to go more inward and started to just take care of my own well-being and my own thought processes and getting exercise and doing all those things so that it keeps me in a really good space. And because they're just things that we talk about this all the time, things you can't control, and a lot of things are now out of your control. So yeah, I can tell you what I do as far as a routine each day, if that helps.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about that, actually.
So first thing, I will always start off with meditation. I've got into that, just 10 to 15 minutes. I will sit outside and I will just meditate. It's the first thing I will do before checking phones or doing anything. Then I have a shower, I have my breakfast, and then I may check in and see what's happening in the world. And then I'll program in my outdoor exercise. So I'll do that, come back, have my superfood shake. So I'm really focusing on my nutrient intake. And then just have a little bit of quiet time. I generally just like to just sit outside and ponder things. Then I have lunch, and then I'll go and do another walk or exercise in the afternoon. And then do things like if I have to go to the supermarket, like today, I actually delivered some supplies to my mum. So that took a bit of time.
How do you go with that whole thing and people getting upset about mixing bubbles and stuff? What's your approach to that?
I didn't spend long. I just laid the supplies, the groceries on the front door, and was at least 10 feet away.
Yeah.
Just chatted to her from the door. Yeah. So
that works.
Was careful with that. Yeah. I'm just sort of playing by what
rules.
Everyone else is doing, by the rules. Yeah. But it's interesting because, when you're in the supermarket, it's kind of normal, but it's not normal. There's a balance between the people that are just going, hey, okay, just going to go about our business. And then there are other people that are just super, super careful about everything. But I found the more you just sort of protect your own internal space and your own mental thoughts and stuff, you can navigate it quite easily, I've found.
Yeah.
I don't know, I've said this before, but I've spent a lot of time on my own, living on my own, going through introspection and periods, weeks and months of, I wouldn't call it self-isolating, but, I always go internal when I want to process things, and it doesn't bother me that I can't connect necessarily with people or be in social environments and do that. I'll go to nature and do those sorts of things and go to exercise and go to my go-tos, but this is not a far stretch for me, personally.
But it is for some people.
Yeah, but it will be for a lot of people, yeah. So, and I feel grateful that I'm kind of had the practice. It's a bit like, if you go to the gym, or if you're a runner or a cyclist and you've put in the miles, you've put in the hours and hours of training, I call it the spiritual miles, which I've done, then you can cope with this sort of stuff because you're conditioned to it. And you go, okay, well, I can just call on all the suffering and pain that I've gone through in the past and realize that I created that. I have control of that. So, and I no longer, the key thing now is I have the awareness. So I no longer choose that. I won't be the victim and go, oh, well, this is going to happen and this is going to happen. So just I have a greater awareness. So I feel very, I don't know what the right word is, but almost, grateful, I guess, that I've had that life experience so that the way things are now, I can navigate it a lot easier.
I think some people would struggle to hear that because they might be parents or they might not be in the freelance situation you are in and be required every day to be going into a kind of work environment from home. And go, well, that's all very well for Rob that he's sorted and doesn't have to do that daily thing because you derive an income
situation.
Differently. Yeah. But I think some of those things can still apply, and that would be the appreciation of learning to slow down and learning to take each moment and plan and get a better sense of centeredness about your day, and notice your breathing and notice your unconscious pre-programmed reactions to things because you have more time to think about the way you're thinking. You have, in some cases, for some people, less to do. If you can't go out to work, you are stuck at home. So then you have the arena of your inner world, which you often just slammed a coffee into and ran out the door and left behind.
Yeah, it was such a busy lifestyle of life. And then when those distractions are taken away, it then shines a light onto another aspect of yourself that maybe was suppressed. That quiet, that solitude, that internal chatter, as you say, your pre-programmed responses, etc. They were always covered up or distracted by going to work, being in rush hour, picking up the kids from school, doing the supermarket shopping, doing the household chores. Such an American word, isn't it?
Yeah, the chores, yeah.
Yeah, and we get it because we fill our lives with all these things to do, and it's the busy life. And and once again, there's nothing wrong with that. But we talk about balance all the time. But yeah, when that's been taken away, then I can definitely see people struggling with that. They'll come up against their own things within them that maybe they need to take a look at now, and they've got the time to do it. If you're that way inclined.
Let's address some of the fear stuff that we talked about last week, and how we're seeing it play out now. I think I had a really impassioned discussion with you last week from the studio, which is one of the last days we could actually get into the studio together when we recorded that. And, and a lot of people were keeping their distance from each other and self-isolating, but that was just moments. It was recorded just moments before we hunkered down into that midnight on Wednesday thing, where from that moment, that where we were was where we stayed. And and in that discussion, I talked about placebos and nocebos with you, and I'm glad we did, because although I was I guess, for lack of a better word, on my high horse pedestal talking about it passionately, I've had time to sit and think about it, and the guts of what I'm saying I think still applies. We are seeing a lot of fear-based stuff that further informs us into a place of fear if your current mindset buys into the drama that's going on. And there's so much of that I want to break down from my perspective about what we're going through worldwide, and why to some extent it's a deception, in my opinion. And if you've listened to Reality Hub from the beginning, one of our first ever episodes referenced David Icke in episode 1 when he was unable
Yeah.
to. Do you remember, Rob, when he was unable to come to Australia or go to Australia for a seminar that he was doing?
That's right. Yep.
Then the very second episode we had was, because we recorded them early before we started putting out the podcast properly. We started recording a few and putting them in the bank, so to speak. Was the March 15th, 2019 terror event in Christchurch. And when I say was the second episode, we recorded it a few days after that. Excuse me, I just mute out when I cough. Don't worry, I don't have COVID. But
No, you're just clearing your throat.
Just clearing my throat.
There is a difference.
Yeah. So, I take a perspective, and I think you do too, that when you think about the reality around you, one source of truth is never a wise way to base your reality. Now, for some people, one source of truth is whatever's coming out of News Hub or TVNZ or One News.
Your go-to, yeah.
Or Radio New Zealand or whatever your go-to is. And I think there's more out there than that. There's a lot more. And there's a lot of cleverly written pieces by medical professionals. There's some really interesting information about the reality of the emerging science on what we're actually dealing with. Meanwhile, I go to the supermarket in my local area and I see people in fear.
Absolutely.
Wrapped up in strange clothing, which is some kind of household version of a hazmat suit, with face masks on and all kinds of interesting things, which haven't really got the evidence, the medical evidence that it makes any difference. And we discussed that last week. But there they are, hunkering down, and the way they move, and some people have talked to me keeping a 2-meter distance, and there's a lot of fear-driven stuff. And I don't blame them, because they only know what they're seeing on the 6 o'clock news or through, their official sanctioned news provider. And a lot of fear is coming out of that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you bring up a lot of stuff there. I mean, going back to our first ever episode, it was actually titled, Have You Questioned Your Reality Today?
Yeah.
So I'll begin by saying, always question everything. The famous David Icke quote, do you mean question? Yes, everything.
Do you mean yes?
Yes, everything. And what that does is that it gives you multiple different perspectives on things, at least get a balanced perspective. And that's what we try and do, and that's what I try and do. Never to sort of believe one source, but you want to kind of, measure that up against another source and then another one and see if the dots join, if things correlate, if things are making sense. It's like putting pieces of a jigsaw puzzle together. So, but it's really hard because we have access to so much information. And I keep thinking that because there is so much distraction, it starts to apprehend your consciousness. And so you've got to be really protective of your internal state and your consciousness and what you're creating in your own reality. So if you're buying into the fear, and if you're giving your, the old saying, where your energy goes,
I think where your attention goes, your energy goes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you got to be really, really vigilant and very, very careful about where you put your energy. Now, I'll ask one simple question. Would you rather feel fear, or would you rather feel love or joy? I think it's pretty obvious what you'd rather feel.
Yeah.
So that's a really simple question. And if something is making you feel fear, you've got to ask yourself a really big question as to why and what you can do about that. Because that's something you can control if you start going within and start realizing how you're creating that fear, and then giving your energy to it, and then taking these actions towards then reaffirming that.
That's beautiful, mate. That's really
Yeah.
beautiful. And what do
And
you
take
think?
a few steps back.
What do you think an example of giving your energy to it can be?
Well,
Or what isn't it? And maybe you can use an example that isn't currently around this whole virus pandemic thing. I mean, if you give your energy to a drama in a relationship, or you participate in a discussion that is unuseful to you, then you're giving your energy to that, right?
okay, here's something. People are going to be very anxious and worried about losing their job if they haven't already done so.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to think about perhaps losing their material possessions, and then maybe losing relationships, structure, loss. So and a lot of people have an attachment to these things, to these labels. So it's very difficult because it's almost like a survival instinct's going to kick in. I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose everything. But if you just come back to the present moment and ask yourself, are you okay now? So these things may not even happened. So, and if you can just catch yourself and stop yourself from going down that road of fear before and creating these stories that haven't even occurred, I mean, that can help you. And that's why meditating and getting within and getting in touch with who you are and getting to that space of your own creative. We talk about cognitive liberty. Is that right?
That's right, cognitive liberty. Yeah.
Yeah, you can decide what you can think and you can decide what you believe and what you all those things that you can control.
Cognitive liberty is the ability to have control over your own belief systems and to master your own universe at your will and not be controlled by outside forces, and to have the freedom and the liberty to believe what you want. It's to allow that reality to form within you, because if you don't have cognitive liberty over your belief systems and what you buy into, then it will be created for you. There will be one pre-built, pre-packaged, pre-published and put out every night at 6 p.m. on the news for you to believe. And then you might say, well, Steve, are you just blind to the realities of what's going on with people dying? And I'm not. And in fact, I have a health-based degree. And in my professional life, I utilize that for my regular daily job income. And I'm not a doctor, by the way, but and I should qualify that it's a health studies based degree, so that's different from someone that actually works clinically on people. But what it does give me is a viewpoint and an education in the academia of what we're dealing with, and it's the academic sciences and research people and specialists and scientists that form the academia and the basis around which policies are formed that put us into this isolation. Policies, public policies that was based on modeling, and the academia that leads us to be here today in our homes, in our bubbles, away from the world. And in an attempt, as they say, throughout the world to flatten the curve. And these statements are being put into our consciousness, and we buy into them and we believe them. And a lot of us don't have the academic background to examine them and ask, well, is this reasonable? Is this peer is this peer reviewed? Is this fact based, or is this perhaps taking the wrong reaction to things? And so I have an interesting perspective on all of this. And when I look at really great information coming out of reliable sources from around the world, we have such conflicting information. And when you look at that, you start to unravel the reality that we're presented with versus different interpretations of how we could have gone about dealing with this virus. Can I go into a couple of those things with you, Rob?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I first wanted to say that we all contain viruses within us, legions of them. And they stay within check because within a healthy, unimmune compromised state, if you don't have any other underlying health issues, they just stay within check. I mean, if you've ever had measles or chickenpox, you have viruses within you. If you've had shingles, or for that matter, if you've ever had a vaccination for a virus of any kind, any illness, you have viruses within you. And one of the most common category of viruses that we have is the common cold. And we all know that the common cold isn't, there is no cure to the common cold, because the understanding of the common cold is that it comes with the seasons. And it's a particular type of virus, and it often affects us at seasonal change time, which we happen to be going through now. And if you've ever had the common cold, then viral evidence of its genome exists within your system and lives within us quite happily without any issue or problem all the time. If you're a healthy person, you have those viruses within you. If you're an unhealthy person, you have those viruses within you, but you may be more affected by them if your immune system is compromised. A coronavirus is just one category of types of viruses, very common, and we've lived with them as human beings for thousands of years. So, what's interesting about the way they test for people that have the coronavirus, COVID-19, is the PCR test. It was based originally and created as a research tool, not as a diagnostic tool, and yet we're using that test diagnostically, the PCR test. And it's not entirely accurate insofar as it just simply tests whether or not you have coronavirus evidence within the sample that was taken, a type of coronavirus. So for healthy people who go and take the test, they'll most likely show up as positive, because most people have got those virus particles and evidence of that within their system. No problem at all. So if you go and test a whole bunch of people who die of pneumonia, which is the end conclusion of a battle with a cold or flu, but they probably died of it because they were immune compromised, because most people don't, then if you were to then test whether or not, using that test that we currently have in this country and around the world, this one that was designed for research and not so much for clinically determining the amount of a virus in you, but just if you had it. So it doesn't determine if you have a large amount of it, which is what would take you out, just if you have evidence of it, which, remember, if you ever had the flu vaccination or had a cold at the age of 7, you have it within you. And of course, they test positive. So if you've died, and then they retrospectively do a test with this research toolkit, not this clinical diagnostic kit, then they're going to say, well, there's another one that died from coronavirus. And they're going to assume that it was COVID-19. Because the next thing they do, which is part of the lies, damn lies, and statistics, which I'm watching unfold in front of us, as George Kavasilis says, grab your Coke and popcorn and watch the drama unfold. In the reality around you, to sit back and watch this deception play out is remarkable, because not so long ago they said we're now going to count all people who have symptoms and who haven't necessarily been tested as probably having the illness. So you'll have people who have a positive test, as well as those who are experiencing the symptoms, all being lumped into people that have COVID-19. But you might just be experiencing a seasonal flu change or a seasonal cold.
Yeah.
You might just have the regular shivers and a fever and a sore throat and a bit of a dry cough, and a couple of days later you're fine. And then, of course, you'll be put into the category of people who survived coronavirus, COVID-19, when in fact may not have been COVID-19 at all. So I certainly don't deny that this particular strain exists. I think it does, and I think when people are hit by it, it's probably pretty awful. But the numbers are so different compared to what I think we're actually being published. It's just my opinion, and I think it's because they're conflating probable with confirmed, and that's just not true. That was in the news a couple of weeks ago, and now you see it just included in the modelling and in the numbers being published of what's increasing every day, and that they don't actually know if the test can't actually prove that it's COVID-19. And the real bombshell when the information I was reading about it came out was it purely confirms if it's in the category of coronavirus, not even if it's COVID-19. And we all have that within us anyway, so this is such a retarded test to put on people.
So in a nutshell, how do we even know that the numbers are accurate? Because all this information about numbers and statistics is how we're basing how we take action and what measures and what steps we take, and how long a lockdown will be and to what extent. I mean, it's what
fuels the drama that is being played out by this powerful governing force that we live in.
Yeah. So, I mean, the ultimate question is what is the real truth behind it all? Is it truly an organic situation that just happens to have gone out of control and this is the world responding to it?
Be nice if that were true.
And everyone is doing their part and have the best intentions, and we're all hoping that everything's going to work out and that life's going to get back to normal the way it was before. Or is there some other storyline being played out? Yeah. I mean, that's what I kind of chop and change in between. And it's really, I mean, for the people that I've spoken to that are kind of in tune and aware about things and have made their life path, whether the channelers or psychics or people that are in the, personal development
arena,
yeah. They can't put their finger on it either. They feel like it's that old saying, as nothing appears as though it seems. So you've got to look deeper than what's happening on the surface level. That's right. And then, maybe you start uncovering a bit more of the truth. But what is real is that it's changed our day-to-day lives. It's changed the structures of society and how we normally go about our business.
It's done it with a fear-based reality that's been
and it's a fear because it's not something where we go, well, all this is happening for your benefit and for greater good. Yeah, maybe to save your life, but it's all fear-based. But it's all been imposed on us. So your certain liberties are now no longer there. So, you got to wonder, you got to be scratching your head going, hang on, what's going on? What's really going on? And what's going to play out next? What's the second, third, fourth step with this?
Oh, I've got some ideas about that. Okay, well, if you look at how they tell us in the media what options exist for the future, and then they play them out, a few things seem to follow as really obvious clues.
Yeah.
One of those was only a few days ago. It's Tuesday the 31st of March at the time of recording this. On the 19th of March, prior to us all going into the lockdown.
We were at level 2 at that stage, weren't we?
There was an article on NewsHub that said rumours of New Zealand going into lockdown are absolutely not true. And the government dismissed this out of hand, and Jacinda Ardern said, could we please stop these rumours? We will not be doing that. And then only a matter of a few days later, we were in lockdown. So that's interesting. It leads you to
Yeah.
wonder if you can trust. Then we had the news of probable cases of coronavirus symptoms will be included as definitely part of the COVID-19 number. So probable, without even getting a test, are going to be deemed numbers that are the same as confirmed. When you add to that the fact that the confirmed test only confirms that if you ever had a cold in your life that you may have the evidence of that RNA from that virus, then it's all a bit of a farce. But then we hear that it's not going to necessarily be 4 weeks. It could be longer. Well, when I heard that, I thought it's going to be longer.
It will be.
There's just no doubt. You give us these clues, and say, but it's not that now. And then, but the clue is coming. So today we heard it's longer. My prediction is it's going to be 2 weeks longer in total. I'll be interested to see if it goes longer than that. But as I sit at this point at the end of March, my prediction is 2 weeks more than we originally were told. And I've got one more for you, Rob, which I think is interesting. The New Zealand Defence Force was just recently welcomed back to New Zealand from Iraq. Now they're going to go into a 2-week self-isolation process. Let's say that 2 weeks began yesterday, so that we'll call that Monday. In a Monday, 2 Mondays from yesterday, or from the 30th of March, I expect to see military on the streets. So that's my next prediction. We'll be 2 weeks longer at least, and we'll see military on the streets, and we'll get curfews as well. And we've talked about this right from episode 1, and I never expected our podcast to be as serious as this has become, because we like to have a good laugh, you and I. But and by the way, we're currently on episode 77 of Baboon Yodel, which they've called Virtual Insanity with Reality Hub, and it was a great talk with Edamon, the comedian, and we had a fun time. But sadly, I think we have to be a little bit more serious to look at the realities that are being imposed upon us, and I see the lockdown going longer. And I see military on the streets, and I see a curfew in the future, and it's all part of something we've discussed right from day one, which is the totalitarian tiptoe.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, but why? Why have we got the military on the streets and, maybe enforcing a curfew? Like, to what end? Like, well, what is that really for?
To what end, indeed?
For
what do you
our
think?
greater benefit? Is that for our protection? What is that really for?
Well, the old saying goes that society will scream to lose its, and request and scream out to lose its freedoms when the appropriate drama and threat is put in front of us. So at some point we will scream out requesting that the police be on the street. And people will shout in horror, no, take away our rights from us. And I'm wired differently to that. From a very young age, I'm wired to be suspicious of control structures and to some extent authority, which is blind authority with no explanation. I don't trust it, and so I question it. And I think we have the cognitive liberty to be allowed to question it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's also a sovereignty, isn't it, of your own
existence. I mean, the number one universal rule is do no harm to others. And also, I think it's important that we agree at a soul level to contractually be part of the process that we're undergoing, and I agree to play by the rules too. But I think one of the great freedoms we have is the freedom to talk about this stuff, these kinds of ideas openly. And whether that be something that you might deem as conspiratorial, or whether you are past that and go, well, the structures of the world around us are not always what they seem. and
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
we need to take a close look at where this is heading and the way in which things are being done in a fear-based way to change the world and to change the way we interact, when ultimately we're talking about a coronavirus as the excuse. We've been given, this is the sad thing too, Rob, I think, is we've been given old people and those with underlying health concerns as the major reason that we're self-contaminating. And that's sad because it pulls on our heartstrings, and everyone wants to look after the elderly. Everyone's got a mum and a dad, or did, and everyone cares for that mother or father. You know.
It's funny.
But the government's never really cared for the old. They've always, for the last 30 years, they've had shit pensions, and they've had the raw end of the stick in a lot of ways, and yet elderly people
now suddenly they're
the excuse is why we're doing this.
And then, I mean, I came across a pitch. You know, we've all seen these pictures of the empty supermarket aisles, the shelves, with the elderly lady or man hunched over, and there's nothing there. Have you seen those pictures?
I've seen that stuff, yeah.
Well, I've heard that a lot of them were fake.
I've heard that too, yeah.
And so, you 100% don't believe everything that gets posted on social media.
Well, I've heard that in some countries, this didn't happen in New Zealand, but there were reports of a television station shooting out to a supermarket where they cleared the aisles of product and then photographed
I've heard the same thing.
as if to say, look, there's nothing here.
Yeah.
And then ironically what they created was the self-fulfilling prophecy of scaring people into that becoming a reality.
Exactly. So you've got
one of the nice things I heard on, because I listen in on the daily briefings from the Prime Minister, and I pay close attention in the way I interpret it. And I've got to be careful I don't get caught up in the fear drama cycle myself, because I think we all can. But I don't believe it, so I take a different perspective anyway. But one of the nice things one of the advisors said was it's the Kiwi way that we're having lovely reports come back from pharmacies and some supermarkets and this kind of thing, where people are coming down to buy stuff and they're being considerate of each other and they're keeping 2 meters apart, because New Zealanders, when fed this reality, they try to be the nicest people they can be, I think, by and large. The whole panic buying mentality of smashing someone in the face to grab another roll of loo paper is not really us, right? I mean, you saw how we were different after the March 15th attack of 2019. We rallied around each other with love. But in pharmacies, they are going down to get medication and they're seeing there's only a couple left on the shelf and they're leaving another one there for the next person. And that's a wonderful thing, because that shows you that we're a culture of people who genuinely care. And that's what
I agree.
That's what saddens me at times because we are a culture of people who genuinely care, and we're being fed a fear-based reality.
Yeah. I mean, I know in my own experiences in the last wee while that every time I ventured out, everyone has been very friendly and there's a community spirit, and there's a real sense of working together, and because it is a small country, we're used to that, and that is special. But yeah, it's I was going to bring something up about just how on Reality Hub it's sort of, to find ourselves in this situation, it does seem, with the way the world is now, it does seem so surreal, and there's just this underlying, I mean, I've always just considered myself a truth seeker. That's why I went on this path, to understand some certain truths about reality and getting to know myself. And I gotta say, this has been, I guess for a lot of people as well, a very challenging time on a number of levels, in terms of just filtering through and getting and distilling and getting to the heart of what's really happening here. And as I say, I still haven't quite got a finger on it. And I'm sure in days and weeks and months to come, the picture will become clearer. I always say you can't join the dots ahead of time necessarily. Sometimes once you've gone through something, you gain the clarity and the wisdom, and you go, aha, okay, I get it now. But yeah, that's what I was going to say. Whether you're a lot of the cloud cloud dwellers out there, the people
Yeah.
that are purely aligned to all things spiritual, are saying that this is a good thing, right? That it's a reset and that the environment is getting cleaner and it's all about, and then this is part of the awakening or getting into the fifth dimension.
Oh, yeah.
And I find that really interesting. Yeah, they're taking that perspective on it which is kind of understandable because that's how
they're
programmed, and that's what their belief system is.
Because for them, in an ideal world, we'd all be driving electric cars and we'd all be vegans and the world would just be farting rainbows and butterflies, right? And that's fine because that's the new age perspective of love light paradigm that they're buying.
This is all part of the process, the ascension process, and the great awakening, and it's all going to be okay. And this is just Mother Earth Gaia resetting herself, and whatever.
Yeah, I know.
You pull a few oracle cards out, and you go.
It's all this sort of thing, isn't it? And
it is, and it's great if how shall I put this? I mean, there is positive to that because it's giving a positive perspective on it. But as we say here, you want to ground yourself in reality, and you got to be an earth dweller because, believe it or not, we're living here and there are fundamental realities that you got to face each day.
If you accept that you incarnated into this reality, then this is the challenge you need to deal with, an earth-based reality.
And if you believe that Earth is a microcosm of the macrocosm of the universe, then you realize that everything out there is what do you call it?
A fractal.
Exists on this. Yeah, it's a fractal. Exists here. So you're going to get all the pain. You're going to get all the suffering. You're going to get all the bad stuff.
Along with all the good.
Along with all the good. And this so happens to be a period in the timeline of this planet's history that mankind is going through one of the, I guess, what do we even term it? It's not a.
It's part of an evolutionary change.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we're at a point of. I mean, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, so to speak, I think we're at a point of expansion of consciousness, and we're at a testing pinch point as well of whether we accept control from a previous structure. I believe mankind is inherently generous and kind to one another, and based on equality, and none of these matriarch patriarch bullshit sort of stuff. It's based on equality and caring, and yet we're fed a control system which is pushing us to behave in certain ways. And I see this as a test. I see it as a way of testing if we do or don't accept the restrictions put upon us based upon a false reality of what's really going on. Because after all, we're talking about the common cold to an extent, or a slightly tougher version of it, which is really not a big deal. Although it will always be and always has been a big deal for those with underlying health conditions and the elderly. But we've always had that. People for thousands of years have been dying that way, as we discussed last podcast. So it's a totalitarian tiptoe into, do we accept the control grid structure and then whatever comes our way after that as the new way we have to live, based on the fear of this could happen to you. You could get the cold, Chicken Little. The sky is falling. And
there's a couple of scenarios as well, because a lot of people are saying, hey, when things can go back to normal, blah, blah, blah. But there are a lot of other people that are saying things won't get back to normal. And I'm trying to kind of figure out what that meaning by that. Like, What
Yeah,
do you mean
well,
things are not going to get back? Things will never be the same again. In what way?
this is interesting when that comes
Mm.
from authority. Because when that comes from authority, things won't be the same again. That's a clue. It's a clue to the plan that they have for you.
Like the pre-suggesting that hang on, no, things won't ever be the same again after this. You do realize that. Whereas a lot of people going, hang on a minute, once we flatten the curve and we've got all the cases, the numbers are going down and we can start going from level 4 to level 3 and then back to level 2 and then suddenly we can going back to the movies and we can start going back to the beaches
We
and
can
going back
just
to the
take the
jobs.
vaccine that's developed in 2 years' time and we'll all be normal again.
I'm going to plan that trip overseas in the next however months.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's a percentage of people out there that are saying, no, you're not hearing, you're not seeing what's going on. That's not going to be the reality.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the whole anti-vaccine, I did watch a 10-minute CNN interview with Bill Gates.
Oh, of course.
Of course, and he's put in $100 million towards the research. And he specifically said, so that everyone can get it at some point, with a big smile.
So that everyone can have his vaccine.
Yep.
Fascinating. Well, look, I'm all down with that if we have complete disclosure of what's in it. Complete disclosure. Oh, and proof and evidence that it works.
Yeah, well, you know where I stand on that.
Clinical trials that show that it has no harm. Because a lot of people don't know that such clinical trials don't really exist.
He did mention the whole 18 months thing, though, which is interesting.
Yeah, interesting that he mentioned it as compared to that Israeli group that were, experimenting with chickens and just happened to already have the coronavirus with just a couple of tweaks to the DNA. It'll be suitable for human beings. Interesting.
Yeah.
You never trust a vaccination that comes too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So interesting times where we're looking right. It's so fascinating for us to go full circle on the kinds of topics that we've discussed from day one, from episode 1, and as we
I mean we've talked about the reality of perception. We've talked about questioning your reality. We've talked about the reality of your own inner bullshit and listening to your inner voice, all those sort of topics. So and then also we've talked about your mindset and your attitude and overcoming obstacles and all those things, which are important in this time.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're listening through our website or want to get in contact with us to make a suggestion of things that you'd like us to talk about during this period of what might be, I hate using the L word, and I don't mean love, but lockdown, then let us know. Feel free to get in touch with us through our website, which is realityhub.love, to contact us through Instagram or Facebook, because we have our own pages there, and let us know what you would want to hear talked about or who you'd like to have on the show, because it's an interesting time that we have. We have the remote setup where we can come to you from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, this is kind of a unique experience.
It is. Yeah.
It's a different energy for me.
Me too. Sitting in the lounge of my getaway location.
Yeah. This feels like a different episode just by the very nature of the physical distance and not being in the studio and having that connection and that energy. So it's a different, definitely a different energy coming through for me.
Yeah. Well, today a lot of my contemplation has been serious thought about what we're going through. And I don't so much as worry, but I do sit back and with interest and go, how will my fellow human beings deal with these emotions as I am dealing with them, as my partner is dealing with them, as we're all, and
That's the thing.
my work colleagues that I have Skype meetings with are all going through this, and it's remarkable, isn't it? Like even Australia is slow to come to a lockdown. I don't think they are right now as of this moment, because we're governed by different forces. But parts of the world are all in lockdown, and we're one of those parts. And we're all going through it, and so it can be at times somber. But I hope to bring a new energy to next week's episode, because we need a laugh as well. We really do.
Yeah. I mean, exactly what you said. The thing is, everyone is going through it. When I visited my mum, or actually when I spoke to her on the phone, actually, I said, it's just fascinating. Like, just think of anyone you know, anyone you've ever made any contact with in your entire life, they're going through it.
That's
it's
right.
like, you can't just go, well, maybe everyone is going through this, and they're all handling it.
What an interesting thought.
Yeah, and it occurred to me, and I thought about all the people that have crossed my path recently, and people just have people that I've had short exchanges with, whether it be someone that I, visited at a restaurant or at a cafe, and I go, they're all going through it.
Every boyfriend or girlfriend you've ever had.
Yeah, people that are from the past, I'm going, wow, they're all going through it, and they'll all be in different situations, or they're all in different parts of the world, or going through their own different ways of dealing with it. And I have, I've been texting Jackie a lot as well.
How's she doing?
Who was on our show. Yeah, Jackie Beaver.
Yeah.
And, we have these long texts, and it's just, we're all feeling the same thing, pretty much. The same things come up for all of us. It's universal.
Yeah.
So it's weird, man. It's just, and then I try to have some sanity by, in the evening, I'll watch some movies and do something lighthearted, and just to feel normal again.
One of the things that I find so surreal about that whole evening experience is if you watch Netflix and you watch a film where people are out and about, and there's a scene in a bar.
Oh yeah.
Go, well, we can't do that anymore.
I know. I was thinking that the same. I thought, wait, they're just sitting in a cafe, or they're doing something in public. Well, we can't do that.
Yeah,
it's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I've been torturing myself watching a YouTuber who he's the insider guide in Bali, and I'm just, every time I watch it, I'm just going, oh, I want to be on that beach. Oh, I want to be doing that. I still want to be there.
Yeah.
I want to be driving that scooter through there, and I'm going, hang on a minute, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah. One thing on our Facebook page, I am doing daily reality checks.
Nice. Yeah, they're great.
So basically, I'll post daily words, pictures, quotes of inspiration, of encouragement, of wisdom. So it can hopefully help you keep your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual well-being in check. Hence the reality check. And can I just quote one of the things I posted?
Please.
It was. I think I'll just do the first one here. So these are just some words just to consider. Do not be overwhelmed. Stay the course. Be encouraged. Do not quit. Be strong. Take heart. Persevere. Have faith. Press on. Trust yourself.
That's cool.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. If you're struggling with this, those are good words.
Yeah. I mean, everything will pass. Everything. Think about anything, any challenge you've ever faced in your life. There was a process to it, but you got through it. You survived. So take heart. Know that there'll be ebbs and flows. Allow yourself to feel it all. But persevere. Take heart. Yeah, be strong and don't quit. And yeah, trust yourself. Trust that you can look after yourself. And And look after the people around you as well, because sometimes you can get caught up in your own dramas and your own, the things that you're going through. And often it's a good thing just to check in on other people so that you take sort of the emphasis off yourself.
Yeah.
I always find that helpful.
That's right. Well, I think that's us wrapping up, and I just want to finish again by shouting out to our podcast colleague Ed Amon and his podcast with him and Renee and Danger over at Baboon Yodel. They're a fun podcast to listen to, and we were honoured to be there and talk crap with them and have a good laugh, which we all need from time to time. So check us out. We're on episode 77, Virtual Insanity.
That's right.
Virtual Insanity with Reality Hub. So, until next episode, and we'll have something to you soon. Stay well, be well, and enjoy the week.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.